So the way the format will work is I'm going to read one of the stanzas from Trust and Awakening. I'll offer a short talk on that stanza, and then we'll do a guided meditation together for the balance of the hour. So the stanza I've chosen is stanza 11. And I'll first read the whole stanza and then discuss it line by line. Ceaseless freedom, abiding in clarity, unmanifest and manifest absolute, immaculate non-doing. So this is, every time I give a talk on these stanzas, I think I start by saying this is one of my favorite stanzas. And I'm going to say that again today. This is one of my favorite stanzas. Each line here, really, I was reflecting on this before the call, that each line here could really be a kind of a koan, a kind of a portal into the totality of practice that we have in Buddhism. Starting with ceaseless freedom. So a kind of freedom that has no end. It has no boundaries. It has no limiting definitions. So it's a freedom that even the word freedom would be dropped. Because in order to be free, we really have to also be willing to release and put down our conceptual understanding, our understanding of the meaning of words, from thoughts, from concepts. We need to have the direct contact, the experiential contact. And we have these moments in our meditation practice when the sense of self is quiet, maybe it's silent, but we have times when we're not being plagued by our patterns, our inner needs, our wounds, our life history. And this is part of the freedom, is the freedom from the belief in the sense of me. There's a lot of freedom that we can make contact with also as we're going deeper in meditation, opening to the source, what I call the absolute. And feeling the freedom there of not needing to be this particular person in this particular body. Awareness and consciousness can journey in and through the absolute without there being a me who's on the journey. And this is really the ceaseless freedom. The ceaseless freedom also gives us freedom for when the self, when a sense of me is present, to not be rejecting that, to not be saying, I don't want this to be here, this is lousy, or having any kind of judgment. Because our personality is also a manifestation of the absolute. It's filtered through a lot of our experiences. It's flavored by the core wound we all carry, where we see ourselves as being worthless, valueless, unlovable, broken, bad, whatever the term is that best describes that wound in you, we believe it. So a lot of the practice that we do is loosening that attachment, that conclusion, and leaving it as a maybe. Maybe this is real. Maybe the sense of self is permanent, and maybe it's not. So this invites freedom as well, as you can see. The second line, abiding in clarity. Clarity is a wonderful term. We can have it both a kind of clarity in understanding. We can have clarity in perception, clarity in knowing. We can have clarity in our speech and in our presentation. Kensel mentioned doing koans, and that's one of the pieces that, as a teacher supporting students in koan, I'm watching for when someone presents an answer. How clear are they? Is it muddy? Is it, is there an opaqueness, or is it quite clear? And that's quite important to see. And so with the clarity that we can have in all these different ways, clarity of perception, clarity of experience, when we abide in this clarity, when we understand that it isn't our perspective that's the most fundamental, it's the perspective of the Absolute. As that becomes more and more our experience, we're abiding and resting more in clarity and able to function from that clarity. For me as a teacher, part of the expression of clarity is also trying to be clear about practice and teaching and the maps and paths. I think the teachers that feel they need to keep a lot of it hidden don't really serve the students as well. I think that the sangha in the West, outside of Asia, is completely mature enough to know that there are fruits to practice. There are experiences that can be had. And we may not get a chance to experience all of them. That's part of life. So for us to have the maturity to accept that is also a clarity of information, clarity of practice, and accepting where we are. That's part of the clarity. The third line, unmanifest and manifest absolute. So this is what's important here, is that both the unmanifest and the manifest are needed. The unmanifest, the primary quality is absence, what traditionally we'd call emptiness in Buddhism. We might even call it nothingness, which can be the experiential knowing of absence. But it's not a vacant absence. It's a full absence. So we can experience it as nothing, and yet there's something significant there too. We can feel a kind of importance when we make contact with that absence. And I call that the unmanifest. The primary visual cue we get there is a blackness. It's not actually the color black. It's a blackness that comes before all colors, including black. So it's like those of you that know some science, know that we see a blue sky, which has to do with our oxygen atmosphere meeting what we would call outer space, where there is no oxygen. And for some reason, that becomes a blue color to our perception. If we move beyond the blue color, beyond the oxygen atmosphere, we would be in space. That if we could look at a little area of space, we wouldn't find a color, but there would be a blackness to it. So it's more of a primary, I won't even say color, but it's more of a primary manifestation of before every color, before every definition, before any concept. And the unmanifest also has the chief characteristics of peacefulness, deep, abiding peacefulness, a peacefulness that brings peace to anything that it meets or contacts, and profound stillness. This is a stillness that's believed to have existed before any creation. So before the Big Bang, as we know it from science, started this universe, all universes, before that, that's where the deep peacefulness, that's where the profound stillness always abide. There's another function of the Absolute, which is the manifest. This is chiefly characterized by presence, a here-ness, a now-ness, an immediacy, a kind of felt gravitas. That kind of a felt sense is presence. And in the manifest, the appearance is, we would call white. It's truly not white, it's really brightness. It's like the sun reflected in a mirrored building. We could say it's white, but there's something about it that's bright, that cuts through, it penetrates. The brightness is hard to grab a hold of. but that's the quality of the manifest. And the two chief characteristics are pure love, an unconditioned love that loves all. And it loves objectively. It doesn't particularly know our names. It's not like I thought when I was a young child in the Christian church. I had a picture of God as being this long-haired, bearded white man with an accounting book, writing down every good and bad thing I did, hoping that the final score would be positive rather than negative. But it's not like that. There's no human judgment being applied to us. It's an objective judgment that gives us free will and lets us choose what actions we take, what behavior we engage in. So it's a magnificent love that's very objective. And also pure awareness. This is awareness of direct perception. Normally when we perceive, we see a shape, we fill in that shape, and then we find, by comparing it to our prior history, what's it like? Oh, it reminds me of this. I met a new person today. They reminded me of this person I know well. It's a shorthand way for us to not have to get to know everything from zero. We can come in knowing or feeling as though we know some qualities about this person or this thing we're engaging with. And so the interplay between the unmanifest and the manifest absolute, that's what creates life. It causes that life force to be awakened in the seed that becomes the flower, in that embryo that becomes a child. It needs that life force from the absolute to spark. And that's what lets us have expression. The reason that there is humans in conditioned living is for us to make contact with the absolute and to, through the process of realization, to return home, to open to the absolute and become as much of a functioning arm of the absolute as we can be, without perfection. That's what's perfect. And the final line, immaculate non-doing. Immaculate's a wonderful word, a kind of cleanness that can't be dirtied. In Tibetan Buddhism, I've heard this referred to as stainless. Now, of course, when I hear stainless, I think of a kitchen and stainless steel bowls and pans and such, but this is a stainless, meaning no stain can land. If something is spilled on the stainless, it will simply fall away or be rubbed away, be cleaned. It won't last, it won't stay, it won't leave a mark. So it can't leave a mark on that stainless, on that immaculateness. And non-doing is really a code in the Zen tradition. It doesn't mean we're not doing anything. It means the personality, the sense of self is not doing. Something more is motivating and animating us. That non-doing means we're doing it without trying to get something, without trying to manipulate others into seeing me a certain way, engaging with me, mirroring me as I want. So it lets us move also into that freedom that the first line points to. The freedom to move and not have to be tied down to the sense of self. And that's all within our potential. But it takes time. We have to reveal the self first fully before we can begin to let go of the pieces that are outdated. And this is our journey on the path, to walk. And when there's immaculate non-doing, that's what we do. And when that's not here, then we do our best. That's always the way we approach practice. So let's go ahead and settle in for some meditation. Go ahead and take your meditation seat. Start with a few big belly breaths. really filling your lungs, your abdomen, all the way down to genitals. You want to really take that breath. Feel your contact with the floor of the building you're in. Feel the holding and support of that building, protecting you, letting you be safe in this moment. If you can sense our Mother Earth beneath, feel her great gifts, not only of life, but of nourishment, safety and security, relationships, even down to the gift of this very breath in this moment. In meditation, we want to relax as much optional tension and stress as we can. If you find spots that are tense or contracted, just gently invite smoothness and flow, relaxation into that area. If it doesn't want to relax, no problem. Just let it go. Let's include the people in your life who you deeply care about. And we'll invite those who care about you. Let's bring in the people who you love in your life. And let's welcome those who love us. We're practicing for all these people today. We never practice alone. We never practice just for ourselves. We're always practicing for all beings. Start by bringing awareness to the hara. That's a spot about 2 finger widths below the navel and 2 finger widths in from the surface of the skin. It's one of the chakras of the chakra system and a natural grounding spot in consciousness. You'll know when you've made contact with the hara because you'll feel a kind of seatedness in the belly area. Put down any need to do anything, just be here. Be resting in the hara with no agenda and no goal. On the next in-breath, invite awareness into the heart area. We're wanting to just be open to the heart qualities that are here of the Absolute. From the universal love, the unconditioned love of the Absolute, we might make contact with innate goodness, that inner goodness that is part of our beingness. We make contact with compassion, the tender holding in the face of our suffering or another's suffering. We may be in contact with empathetic joy, mudita we call it. This is the rejoicing at another's success, at their good fortune. And then finally, with equanimity, upekkha. Equanimity is about the truth, accepting fully the truth of this moment. Whatever you're experiencing, that's the truth of this moment. So try not to change. Just accept what's here. That lets us land in Upekkha. So make contact with whatever heart quality is appearing for you. Breathing into the heart, relaxing and receiving the heart quality that's presenting. On the next in-breath, invite awareness to the center of the forehead. This is another chakra, as is the hara in the heart. In Theravada Buddhism, we call this the wisdom eye. In Zen tradition, we call it the Dharma eye. Being with the wisdom eye helps us develop intuitive knowing and inner sight. Inner sight's the ability to see into our meditation. You don't need to have inner sight to have deep meditation. Some people have the skill, others don't. Just to say you can have other sight, other senses, inner senses of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. All those can be active in our inner world. On the next in-breath, invite awareness to the top of your head, what's called the crown chakra in the chakra system. This is a portal that awareness and consciousness use to journey to other realms and other universes. With the wisdom eye and crown chakra, you might be feeling a pressure. You might be feeling some energy activity or nothing at all. Any of these is perfectly fine. I'll be commenting on what's appearing in our field. Just let yourself be drawn into this territory. You don't need to see what I'm seeing. You don't need to feel what I'm describing. Just be open to being impacted and touched by these qualities of the Absolute. Those with inner sight may be seeing that bright whiteness, that brilliant shine of the manifest Absolute, like sun reflected in a mirrored building, almost too bright to see. The brightness communicates, conveys the purity of the Absolute, the cleanness, the unsullied quality. This purity can go anywhere and meet anything, even if we consider it to be impure. It will still be pure when it meets this brilliant, bright white light. And notice the quality of presence that's here. the solid here-ness, the now-ness. The past and the future are only concepts. Everything is always happening in this moment, this breath. That's the felt sense of presence, the gravitas of here. And the pure awareness, the perception without comparing it to our history or memories. We know what water is by tasting it, not by recalling a certain memory or experience. So let your experience be informed by your contact with these qualities of the Absolute, the brilliant white light of purity, the objective, all-welcoming, all-encompassing love, the non-conceptual awareness, knowing by perceiving, by the intimate contact, the sameness. Let yourself feel the buoyancy of the pure love. Feel the penetrating quality of pure awareness. Surrender any doing, surrender any ideas of getting anywhere. Be willing to not know who you are in this moment. We'll sit silently for about 15 minutes, and then I'll ring the bell. If your attention has wandered, gently return it without self-criticism or self-judgment.